Hi everybody, Mike Beer here with your DRF race of the day for Thursday. We're going down to Keeneland race. Number 8 on Thursday is the Grade 3 Sycamore. 1.5 miles on the turf, 3-year-olds and up, purse of $150,000. Let's take a look at this field of 10, led by the horse, drawn on the far outside, number 10 Ziad, shipping in from France, where he's been facing some major competition so far this year. He has not come away victorious in any of his recent turf starts. He did win off the layoff on a synthetic track. This horse has tons of back class. He has been seen in North America before. He came over for the Canadian International last year as a 4-year-old, where he finished a very close third. He did not have Lasix that day. He will have Lasix for the first time here as he makes his first start for trainer Graham Motion. He looks like the horse to beat, taking some significant class relief for this race. Number 2, Red Knight, is a horse who should have some support here for Bill Mott. This horse last seen earning a triple-digit buyer when finishing second in the Kentucky Turf Cup over at Kentucky Downs last month. He finished ahead of 3 of these same rivals in that race. He ran a very good race that day against a good field. He looks like a very nice fit in this race. The 5, Big Agenda, the 6, Aquaphobia, both go out for the extremely dangerous Mike Maker barn. They're both in very good form right now anyway, with Aquaphobia having become a Grade 1 winner 2 starts back when he took the UN over at Monmouth Park. So that horse comes in good form. Let's take a look at this new Timeform US pace projection for this race, because it's very interesting the way that Timeform US sees this race. They think that the Sycamore is going to be run at a very fast pace here. So we'll see if they're right about that. They have one of those maker horses, Big Agenda, out there on the early lead. This horse is stretching out in distance. He has shown some speed going shorter distances, so it wouldn't be that big a surprise to see him out there on the early lead in this race. How fast he has to go to get there, you know, I guess we'll see. There are a couple of horses that like to be forward in their races, and so maybe one of those will make their presence felt early and push this thing a little bit. I'd be surprised if they went too fast. But, you know, certainly, I mean, they don't even have, on the Timeform US pace project, they don't have the number 1 postulation all that close to the pace, but he's a horse who seems like he's really at his best going forward and wants to be forward. I'd be surprised if he was as far back as they have him. They also have Maker's other horse, Aquaphobia, up there. Eons, who was close to the pace in the Kentucky Turf Cup last time. They have him forward as well. Suppose I could see that, but I feel like he might be a little bit better from off the pace. We'll see how the pace plays out. I don't know if they're going to go that fast in here, but perhaps they will. And if they do, it's going to help out some of these other horses in this race. Let's take a look at some of the contenders here. Postulation, I suppose, the number 1 is one of those contenders. As mentioned, Red Knight was second in that Kentucky Turf Cup last time at Kentucky Downs. Postulation was in that race as well, where he finished 5th. They went forward with him early in that race. He kept right up close, tracking up there on the lead. Eons, who's also back in here, made an early move to take over. And so Postulation just sort of kept up after that horse on the lead. He pressed him for a long way, could never get by Eons. Was no match for the 1, 2, 3 finishers in the stretch, and wound up finishing a no-threat 5th. He was off a little bit of a layoff there. It was soft ground, which, you know, he didn't have to love. I can see this horse, you know, being a little bit better on firmer turf. So that could lead to a turnaround here in a second start off the layoff, and you only have to go back 2 starts on his card to a 1.5 mile race here at Keeneland in the Elkhorn, where he finished a very good second. He was a huge price in that race. They put him right on the early lead. He did not have to go fast, and he just failed to hold on late to, and at that time, in form, Zulu Alpha. That was a good performance for Postulation. He's got races that make him a major contender in this race. He's going to be a price, and I can see him getting forward in this race. So if you like Postulation, I wouldn't try to talk you off of him. Number 2 is Red Knight. And as mentioned, he just finished ahead of 3 of these same rivals last time in that Kentucky Turf Cup at Kentucky Downs. I thought he ran really well that day, and I particularly liked the way that he sat close to the pace, but he just looked very settled the entire way around, because anybody who's seen this horse run in the past, whether it be in New York or anywhere else, he can just be a very difficult horse to ride. He gets very headstrong in his races. He tends to pull his riders forward. He didn't show any of that last time at Kentucky Downs, and it led to perhaps the best performance of his career. He wound up being only second best as Arklow, the winner of that race, managed to refine his really good form, and he wound up winning that race clear. But Red Knight ran a very good second in there. He was well clear of Zulu Alpha, who finished third. I thought that was a really good performance for Red Knight, and he's just a horse. He gets this distance. He's run very well at Keeneland in the past. When they brought him here last April off the layoff in the Elkhorn going this distance, and that was over yielding ground. He ran an excellent second that day. This is a horse who makes a lot of sense in this race. We'll see what kind of price he is. I personally feel like he'd be tough to take at any kind of a short price because he's just not that reliable. He doesn't win, I guess, all that often. And as mentioned, he can be a difficult horse to ride, but I just think this horse is a major player in this race. And, you know, of those horses coming back out of the Kentucky Turf Cup, I thought it would be pretty hard to take any of the ones that finished behind him over Red Knight in this spot. Although if you're hunting for prices, maybe you will land on one of those horses. And one of them is the number 3, He's No Lemon. And this is a horse who I would certainly be willing to give another chance to. He's still a relatively lightly raced 4-year-old now. It did feel like he had taken steps forward when they brought him back off the layoff this year to begin his 4-year-old campaign. He finished, I thought, a pretty solid third in the Louisville at Churchill Downs going this distance. They brought him here for the Elkhorn back in July. He didn't run great that day. That was a race where they took him back to last. He tried to follow Zulu Alpha, the winner of that race, into it. And he just didn't really have enough run. It felt like at that time, the Elkhorn was just too tough for this horse. It was only his second start as a 4-year-old and second off the layoff. Graham Motion did the right thing. He got him some class relief for his next start up at Saratoga in an allowance race. This horse had a perfect trip and got the job done that day. I thought he ran well. I liked that he sat a little closer to the pace that day. And then they brought him to Kentucky Downs for that Turf Cup last time. And listen, it was soft ground. Maybe that's an excuse for He's No Lemon. For whatever reason, he just didn't run well that day. They took him way back in the pack again. They got him to the outside. And basically, as they came to the upper stretch there, and that's a very long stretch at Kentucky Downs, he was right outside of Zulu Alpha as they both tried to commence runs from off the pace. Zulu Alpha went on with his run. He's No Lemon did not go on with his run. He finished far back in the field. It was a disappointing performance, I thought. But maybe there's an excuse to be had for him considering the soft ground. And if he rebounds and takes a step forward here, I feel like he's a horse that you maybe want to give one more chance to, especially if he's a price. Let's move on to the 5 and the 6. They're the 2 maker horses. To be honest, I don't really know what to do with either of them. Big Agenda is a horse who began his career for Christophe Clement. This horse has a really nice pedigree. And he began his career for Christophe Clement, and for whatever reason, he just struggled to win races. 5 consecutive starts early in this horse's career where he settled for second best. 3 of those by a nose, where he just managed to lose photos, and it just felt like he didn't have that will to win. He wound up in maiden claiming races, ran for a couple of different trainers. I guess he did improve last year down in Florida, running in some weaker races. Managed to win some of those weaker races. 3 starts back on his card. They went to Colonial Downs. Those races aren't that strong. Another horse in here, North Dakota for Shug McGee. He was also in that race. And when all was said and done, Big Agenda was no match for North Dakota that day. North Dakota came from off the pace and sort of easily ran this horse down. At that time, Big Agenda was racing for a 5% trainer. His last 2 starts, he's been transferred to Mike Maker. And as we're used to seeing over and over again, it's led to an improvement for this horse. He's won now 2 races in a row for Mike Maker. They are both going shorter, one at a mile and a 1/16. But he's also earned the top 2 figures of his career. We're used to seeing Maker take these horses over, improve them, stretch them out in distance, and improve them again. He's going to try that here with Big Agenda, and we'll see if it works. You know, listen, I'll be honest, I won't be surprised when it does work. But these horses are just really hard for me to evaluate, really hard for me to take as well. If he's a big price, though, he's a horse that you're going to want to be leery of. Aquaphobia, I sort of feel the same way about him. I've always liked Aquaphobia. He's been around for a long time. He's 7 years old now. He's made 37 starts. He was always good for his prior trainers. He was never a stakes horse. He was always sort of that high-priced optional claiming allowance kind of horse, maybe a little starter stake here and there. But he was never a top class horse. Maker claimed this horse for $62,500 back in January. Wins a stakes race immediately upon being claimed. Finishes second, runs well in a couple of other graded stakes races. And then they take him down to Monmouth, stretch him out to 11 furlongs for the United Nations, and now he's a grade 1 winner with a triple-digit buyer. I didn't love the United Nations as a race overall. This horse got a perfect trip when he won, but he is very clearly improved for Mike Maker, and he's dropping out of a tougher race in the Sword Dancer, which was run over a boggy turf course, and he didn't run poorly at all in there to finish third. And this is an easier spot, most likely, than that one. Again, he's a contender. Just not a horse that I'd be willing to take a short price on in this race. The 7 North Dakota, I don't want to spend too much time on him. He looks like he's in over his head in this race. I have a little thing for this horse, and I'm going to throw him in on the bottom of my wagers in here just because I like North Dakota as a horse. He's got a really big pedigree, and it feels like he's a typical Shug McGahee horse. Of course, he's always had some potential, but he's starting to put things together now. I really feel like this horse is improving. He's never been this far before. He certainly has a pedigree to get this far, but he's never been this distance, and he's stepping way up in class here off of that win that we mentioned earlier at Colonial Downs where he ran down Big Agenda. He ran that horse down very easily. What I like about this horse is just the way that he's been finishing in his races. And, it doesn't mean he's going to finish that well going a mile and a half, but if you're looking for horses who are in form and who maybe have a chance to improve, you could do worse than just take horses that really finish in their races, and North Dakota's been doing that. So I feel like maybe throw him in at the bottom of your wagers at the very least at a very big price. I thought the 9 Eons, another horse exiting the Kentucky Turf Cup, I thought he had a chance in here. I don't love this horse, but he was pretty good as a 3-year-old, sort of taking small steps forward. He won 4 races in a row, including the Grade 3 Kent at Delaware. His final start as a 3-year-old came very early in August. They took him to Saratoga for the Saratoga Derby, and he was no factor at all in that race, which was one wire to wire. He finished last and got a layoff right after that, and it was a pretty long layoff as well. So it suggests an excuse for him that day. Since he's come back this year, only 3 starts, but I do think he has improved so far as a 4-year-old. They brought him back in the poker, as a matter of fact. There were a bunch of trips in the poker, a lot of horses who felt like they were compromised by the way that race was run. I thought Eons was one of them. I don't think he was going to win that race, but I didn't think he got a great trip at all in that spot. And he was in the Kentucky Turf Cup last time where they wound up going forward with him and putting him eventually on the lead up the backstretch. And, listen, he was no match for the 1, 2, 3 finishers. All 3 of them very good horses, but he was pretty game to hold 4th in there. I think he could take a step forward in here. The number 10 is the horse to beat, Ziad. And, listen, it's significant class relief for this horse. Again, I don't think he's been quite as good so far this year as a 5-year-old, as he was last year. But he's really been facing some very, very good horses over there. And in his defense, he did run really well in that Group 1 back in June. So where he finished a very close 3rd. So, this horse does have the races to be very hard in this field. When you go back to his Canadian International last year when they shipped him over, they put him right on the lead that day. All things considered, he was the favorite that day, and I thought it was a pretty disappointing loss just because he got loose on the lead. The horse that beat him, Desert Encounter, who was, he came into that race in very good form, but Desert Encounter completely blew the start of that race and wound up last. And he still managed to run down Ziedo. I just didn't feel like had any real excuse not to win that day. It just makes me question, how good this horse actually is. But certainly he's got the credentials to be a handful in this race. As already mentioned, he's going to get Lasix now for this race. He goes for Graham Motion, who does have a really strong record with horses like this. So he just makes a lot of sense. I didn't necessarily want him at a short price as he breaks from post 10, but he's certainly a contender. Let's put the picks up now. And I'm going to go back to Red Knight. I liked him last time. I thought he ran a really nice race that day. I'm hoping that he can settle and pull a similar kind of trip in this race. I think his very best race, I think, gives him a huge chance in here. And it feels like with Zayed in this race, he's not going to be the favorite. So I'm going to take Red Knight on top. And I put He's No Lemon second just because he's going to be a big price. And I do think he deserves a chance to rebound. He may not be this good. But I think he deserves a chance to rebound. I went 2, 3, 10, and 7 in your Thursday race of the day, the 8th at Keeneland. It's the Grade 3 Sycamore, the approximate post time, 4:57 Eastern Time. Good luck.